Hi, welcome to Head Start, the podcast for race directors and the business of putting on races. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you bought something without checking out reviews for it online? Well, experiences, like races, are no different. When you have a dozen 10Ks to choose from, you'll want to hear what others have to say about each race before making your decision. And that's where race reviews come in. Whether they're hosted on your website or a third-party site, reviews are the mirror of your race to the world. It's the best social proof you have and the most effective way to communicate to prospective participants what's great and unique about your events. Well, my guests today, Alex Tanti and Katie Ho, know a thing or two about the power of race reviews. Through racecheck.com and raceraves.com, they've helped thousands of races make the most of the huge missed opportunity that is race reviews. And they'll be sharing with us today all the tips and tricks that can help you make the most of your race reviews in your marketing and PR communications. Before we go into all that though, I want to give a quick shout out to our podcast sponsor, Give Sign Up Run Sign Up, the leading all-in-one technology solution for endurance and fundraising events. More than 22,000 in-person, virtual, and hybrid events use Give Sign Up Run Sign Up's free and integrated solution to save time, grow their events, and raise more. So, a big thank you to our friends at Give Sign Up Run Sign Up for supporting this podcast. And do make sure to visit runsignup.com to check out the many transformational things Give Sign Up Run Sign Up can do for your event through the power of technology. By the way, if you're a regular listener and you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe on your favorite player or leave us a review. Either would mean a great deal to us. Okay, let's get into this amazing episode. Katie, Alex, welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for coming on. As I mentioned to you before we went on air, this is going to be the first time that I'm doing a kind of podcast with two guests. So fingers crossed that everything turns out fine. I think we're going to need some introductions to begin with from the both of you, because even if some people in our audience might know about one of you, I think I'm probably one of the few people on the planet who would know about both RaceCheck and Race Raves in any great depth. So why don't you, Katie, start us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're based, and a bit about Race Rave, please.
Sure. So like Alex, Race Raves kind of started off as a family affair. My husband, Mike, and I were based in Los Angeles, and we launched in 2014, driven by the realization that there was no one place to go to when trying to find and research races. The ecosystem felt very fragmented. When you were able to, there were a handful of race calendars out there, but when you found something, you still kind of had to Google the official site or maybe some blogs to get more information. So we created Race Raves as a one-stop resource dedicated to helping runners find the best races around the world for them, based on what they're looking for. And so we tried to combine a few elements in terms of, intuitive search features, race reviews, and compelling editorial content. And, we just continue to work hard at making this a valuable resource for both runners and race directors.
Yeah. Alex, tell us a little bit about RaceCheck.
Yeah, sure. So RaceCheck started as a part-time hobby, let's put it that way. I was working in Tokyo at the time in investment banking, and I just got into triathlons, and I took part in a really badly organized triathlon that left me wishing there was some platform that I could leave, let's say, some constructive feedback about the race, similar to TripAdvisor, and there wasn't one. So I decided to, and I shared that thought with my sister Katrina. And so we decided collectively to go into an adventure and start something, primarily for athletes, to really help athletes find better races around the world. We spend so much time and money preparing for these events, but also at the same time create something that really helps organizers improve. So that's how our journey started. And that was about the same time, I guess, when the idea was germinated, 2014 or so, yeah.
And you guys got acquired recently by Super League Triathlon, right?
That is correct, yes. So big milestone for us, yeah.
Excellent. How are things going?
Fantastic. We had a pretty solid understanding into what we were going into, let's say, in terms of cultures and what we were supposed to bring to the table. And what Super Leagues bring to the table. And as in any good relationship, whether that's commercial or non-commercial, it's very important to have expectations very, very clear from the beginning. So that so far it's looking very smooth. It's been a great culture fit. RaceCheck is continuing as a completely standalone company, no interference whatsoever, and at the same time are a small part of this great organization that is creating and organizing some of the most exciting triathlon races in the world. So it's fantastic.
Perfect. I'm glad to hear that. So the reason why we've all gathered here today is because I wanted to do an episode going into some depth into the value of race reviews. And the reason why I thought I'd do it with the both of you is because although, there's a few race listing sites out there, I've sort of singled out RaceRaves and RaceCheck, both because of the quality, and I strongly recommend anyone listening in that they check out raceraves.com and racecheck.com and put the races up there. But also because of all the race listings out there, I think you two have focused most of your energy into reviews and creating a good repository of helpful feedback from actual participants that can help both the organizers and also then new participants, looking for their next race. And I think you've seen enough between the thousands and tens of thousands of reviews that the two sites have to be able to give us a little bit of an insight into, what's the benefit of having reviews and how to get more reviews and what to do with good reviews and bad reviews, etc. So let's start off with probably the most important question, which is, why are race reviews important in the first place? So from the point of view of a race director, why should I care about race reviews out there on race listing sites and other places?
When you think about the customer journey and how a runner learns about your event, becomes interested in it, decides to sign up, we know from research and personal experience that we all use reviews to decide where to stay, where to eat, what to watch. And we don't feel it's any different for races. I mean, it's a considered purchase. You have to commit to, especially for longer distance events, you have to commit to training. You sometimes commit to travel. And so reviews can be very influential in terms of knowing what you're getting into, setting expectations. And we believe it helps in terms of that discovery process, conversion. And then there's this great cycle, if you can capture great word of mouth and be able to use it in future marketing, that's very critical as well. So we firmly believe that reviews are an important part of the marketing life cycle.
Yeah, I concur with that. And I mean, reviews have been very well established in consumer products for decades. And, racing and taking part in a mass participation event is very similar in purchasing a product. However, with the intricacy that it's actually an experience. So while reviews have been around for a long time and very much widespread when it comes to products, reviews or reviewing experiences, let's say, is slightly different because it's very hard to, let's say, encompass the quality of a race in a single 5 rating system. So from a participant's perspective, especially because, again, they have to invest so much time and effort into preparing for these races, they're quite a large kind of ticket item to start with, ranging from anywhere from $40 to $600. But it's also the time required to prepare for these events. You invest so much time. Usually you require your family to be on board months and months for preparing for a triathlon, only to go there and be disappointed for something trivial like the aid stations running out of water. So reviews are important in order to help the participants make these better race choices, but also keep organizers accountable and on their toes. And that, as with any other consumer product out there, their product will be talked about, whether that's in social media or wherever, and they need to be prepared for that accordingly. So yeah, I think if not more important than products, it's reviews are very important for races as well.
Well, the interesting thing there is that I think, contrary to, as you say, products, race directors don't seem to me to want to put a lot of energy or to be aware of the need to put energy into soliciting reviews? I know, for instance, race directors, sometimes they might work on sending out a race survey after a race, but I've seen very, very few of them actually focus on, like growing their reviews, the same way that some people on Amazon may focus on, getting more customers to review their product. So speaking of surveys, do you see like reviews as sort of like an alternative to surveys, or they play alongside them? Because I suppose both provide some kind of feedback to you, the race director, about how you performed on putting on a race.
From our perspective, they're two very distinct. They serve two very distinct functions. So surveys are used internally. Reviews are used externally. So reviews is a marketing tool. Surveys are really a post-event feedback tool for within the team. At RaceCheck, we're trying to kind of slightly go towards combining the two, but both are very important and both need to be used. You can't really have one without the other and saying that one replaces the other. Yeah, in my mind, both are necessary.
I would agree. I think they're very complementary. As Alex said, one's inward facing, one's outward facing. And I think the reviews really can be used as a marketing tool in terms of if the messaging around it is, help us spread the word and tell other runners why you should run with us. That's very different than, help us understand how we can improve, or, some surveys are used to measure economic impact. There are many different, they're different goals. So we very much see them as complementary, and, working hard to educate race directors about the value of reviews, because it can be, I'm sure we'll talk about this later, they can be very turnkey. It's not, I think there previously might have been a fear it was something else to manage, but they can be very, very powerful. And so we're trying to make sure race directors understand the value, and then how to go about capturing them and using them.
Also, just to touch upon something you said, Panos, that in general, race directors have been reluctant to, or have not really valued the reviews compared to maybe consumer products, for example, that really value reviews. Race directors haven't. I think it's also a function of a product with time becoming more and more commoditized, right? And I think in 2010, there was a lot less competition when it comes to mass participation events than in 2018. So where, a participant in the past may have had only one race within a radius of 10 miles from their house to go, now they may have 3 or 4. So it's important to stand out somehow. And really, peer participant reviews is one of the most powerful marketing tools an organizer can employ. So I think with time, and as time goes by, and certainly in more recent years, race directors have been more and more receptive and accepting reviews as a viable marketing tool.
Yeah, mm-hmm. and I get the distinction now. We're saying surveys is more like is probably the better or the most suitable tool to get feedback about the race, sort of like private feedback that you build on, and then reviews is the outward facing, like this is what people think about my race and I'm going to use it kind of thing. So moving on to actually using reviews, you guys have thousands of races listing on your sites and tens of thousands of reviews. Is there any hard evidence that having positive reviews on sites like RaceRaves, like RaceCheck, actually leads to more registrations or more eyeballs on an event or more traffic?
Yes, correct. The direction of RaceCheck has slightly changed over the past sort of year or so. We're focused even more on reviews than we have done in the past, although we did spend about a year also trying out and experimenting with a marketplace type model, whereby people, we would actually take bookings on the RaceCheck website itself. And there it was just so apparent. We would have about a 25% conversion rate for races with reviews versus sort of a 2 to 3% conversion rate for races without reviews. We also did a recent study with our RaceCheck review widget product where the same type conversion rates were proven. So we have hard evidence that reviews for races work just as well as reviews work for any other consumer product. Otherwise, the review industry wouldn't be where it is. So yeah.
Do we have any evidence whether having poor or so-so reviews is actually better or worse than having no reviews? So, is it actually better for no one to have reviewed your race, or for someone to have reviewed it with maybe like a 3 out of 5 average or 3.5 out of 5?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think at least mediocre reviews give the reader some additional insight into what to expect, and people are different, right? So someone's pet peeve might not be a big deal to someone else. So for example, if someone's saying, wow, there really weren't a lot of spectators, that might be another runner's like, great, I'm looking for something low key. So personally, I think that, having reviews, even if they're not all 5-star or 5 shoes, what we use, it's still helpful in terms of providing information about what to expect.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also say that mediocre reviews, almost as you read a mediocre review, you're then looking for the reply. You're then looking for the response. Mediocre reviews really beg the attention of the organizer to reply to that, to address that review. What are you going to do about this? So on RaceCheck, we've seen races that really haven't had much impact in terms of entries if the reviews from last year have been addressed. The participant feels valued. The participant feels like he's been listened to. And we had a great example with the Manchester Half Marathon. I think it was in 2017. It had horrible reviews. The organizer took the time to reply to each review separately. And then in 2018, the reviews came in fantastic, having taken on board all the feedback that the past reviewers had shared. So that's a great example for why somebody shouldn't really fear negative reviews. Even if they do get negative reviews, if they reply to it, it will turn into a positive. The participant will probably sign up again after feeling valued in that way. And it's just a way for the organizer to just improve and come back the next year stronger.
Do you also see this with reviews on your sites, where people are like, I see that a lot on Amazon products and stuff. I think it's like human nature, where people go either like 5 out of 5 or 1 out of 5. Like you only see extremes. You see very little sort of like middle ground type reviews.
I'd say we see mostly 4s and 5s, some 3s, and only a handful of 1s and 2s. So I do think that people, they probably tend to be more on the either side of the bell curve, but it's not all 1s and 5s. I think it's more kind of, for us anyways, 4s and 5s, then,
Yeah.
And the other thing too is we value transparency. So when anyone is reading a review, you can always click to that person and look at their profile and see, hey, is this person just a hard grader? Everything they review is a 3, or is this an anomaly? It kind of puts it in context. And so you also get that perspective of, is this runner the kind of runner that I relate to, or is this, they have different things that they look for. So that's something else, I think, a nuance that we tried to make very apparent and provide people with context.
That's also the interesting thing about the difference between rating a product versus rating an experience. So with a product, you can actually afford to have somebody just rate it out of 5, and that's it. With experiences, we've taken an extra step to actually create a number of different factors that people rate. So with us, for example, you can rate aid stations, marshal supervision, course safety, etc. That really forces objectivity from the side of the participant. So it's not a secret that it's very likely that somebody who just didn't have a good time, or it rained, are more biased to provide negative reviews. But if you ask them how was course safety, even if they didn't get a PB, or even if it was raining, if the course was safe, they just can't give it a 1 out of 5. You almost enforce objectivity by guiding the participant through a number of different aspects of the event, really providing a 360 view of the event, in order to really express what it was as an experience. So in that respect, we very rarely have general ratings in the extremes. They tend to be around the 4 level. We're actually playing more with the decimals to really distinguish between races. So yeah, I guess in that sense we're fairly similar with Katie and Race Raves.
Well, the other thing you see in reviews is that for someone to go on a site like yours and review a race, they must have either loved it or really hated it, right? So that's where I'm coming from with a not seeing too many threes. I guess like with most things, you either create an advocate and they come on the site and they give you a 5, or like a lifelong disappointed runner and they come on and they give you a 1.
And that's why it's an opportunity, I think, for race directors to use this from a marketing perspective, right? So it's a way to rally your evangelists. Your finishers are always going to be your best advocates. And if you can rally those people and they feel passionate enough or strongly enough about the great experience they had, and they're willing to talk about it and share that experience, that's where you're going to get the 4s and the 5s. And someone who, maybe didn't feel as strongly or didn't care, had an okay experience, they may not be as likely, to write that up.
So of the many things that come up in reviews, what have you guys seen as being like the most popular or the kinds of things about a race that people focus on and they would mention in a review, either good or bad? Like what kind of things come up?
I think for us, by far the most popular criticism tends to gravitate around medals, for sure. The goodie bag, toilets around the start line, logistics.
Medals, you mean not getting a medal, or the medal being like poor quality, or what's the peeve there?
Not getting a medal is really bad.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But in general, the quality of the medal. Yeah, as I said, toilets and loos around the start line, navigating the course, how easy it is to get lost, for example. Those are the common themes that come up.
Yeah, same here. I mean, it is kind of funny how much porta potties do, or lack of porta potties do, come up.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, it's a critical aspect of race day, and something goes wrong. Yeah, it's a big deal. And I'm not surprised about medals being a big deal either, because we were doing another episode with Thomas Neuberger talking about marketing, and everyone would say, yeah, I don't care about the medal, whatever, but everyone cares about the medal, right? It's the first thing that people market against, and it's the first, I guess, disappointment that people register going to a race. So that's not particularly surprising. Do you find also that maybe people leaving reviews are influenced by their own performance on the day? Like, I don't know how you might even work out whether there's a correlation there, but does the participants' own performance cloud or inform their attitude toward leaving a review?
We actually have a separate subrating for that because we were concerned about it and we wanted to make people think about how to separate that. So we have a separate subrating for your own performance, which is optional, but at least it forces people to think about that. And in our prompts, in our review form, we try to focus on, share things that other runners will care about. It is kind of like those Amazon reviews where you see like a one-star review because they didn't get the package on time. I mean, I think most people are discerning enough to be able to scan through reviews and see like, okay, this person's talking about themselves. But we do try to, it's something we thought about because we certainly have had reviews where people will ding a race because they didn't perform well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's only natural to bias the rating of the review or the review, your performance. It's that's why, again, we're focusing on guiding the athlete or the participant in rating the race as an experience and giving it a 360 review, going through many different aspects in order to enforce objectivity. So that's a challenge, but I think it's worked very well for us.
So you're starting from scratch or almost from scratch, and you want to get as many participants as possible to review your race, right? So how do you do that? Well, you use every opportunity you get when you communicate with your participants to ask for a review. Do you send out live race results? Ask people to review your race. Do you send out a race day wrap-up email? Put a review link in there as well. Are you doing free race photos, which your participants are going to love, by the way? And you send an email to your participants with a link to their personal race photo gallery. Well, put another link in there as well. It all sounds great, doesn't it? But there's one small catch. How do you send out all these cleverly personalized emails without spending hours upon hours hacking email templates and moving data back and forth between your registrations and your email marketing platform? Well, you do that with Give Sign Up, Run Signups integrated email marketing. And integrated is the keyword here. You want to be able to have all your participant info right there on the email template when you want to send out an email. You don't want to be moving data to a separate system and then 7 people sign up or another 3 want to switch races and you have to worry about your data being out of sync on your email system. That is the beauty of platforms like Give Sign Up, Run Sign Up that are built around races at the core. Every tool you use, whether it's email marketing or fundraising or race results, taps into the same participant data, updated in real time without you having to do a thing. Integration, that's what you need. Okay, so we've been through how to get more race reviews. Now let's hear from Katie and Alex how to use those reviews to maximum effect in your marketing and PR communications. Let's get back to the interview. Okay, so let's move on to another really important question here, which is how can race directors put reviews, hopefully good reviews, to good use? So how can I, as a race director, if I have like a streak of good reviews for my event, how can I use that to actually, like drive value for my event, for my marketing, for my registrations, for all that?
It certainly excerpting great testimonials and using those in your marketing communication, whether it's on your site, in social and email. I think we both have various badges that events are allowed to earn in terms of, top rated, or for us, runners rave about us on Race Raves, that type of thing, to give that third party validation. That a third party platform where runners can see reviews. It's content that runners are looking for, and so I think that leveraging that, in a way and just weaving that into your marketing communication is really important.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think being able to show the rating through an independent platform on your event website is a very good idea. Quotes can be questionable because you can obviously choose which quotes you use. So obviously you're not going to use bad quotes in your website. It's how do you maintain that independence and that feel that this is not me talking, it's actually the participants talking. The simplest thing is just the average rating of the event on your website, because the rating is what it is a good way to start. Yeah.
Have you seen any particularly creative ways, perhaps some example that stood out of how some people on your site may have used reviews to further their event from a marketing point of view?
We've seen some events use it as a kind of a content series on social. So they'll have like a hashtag Feedback Friday, and they'll just feature various reviews for some period of time. I think also when they're looking at reviews, selecting content that reinforces what makes them different. So choosing the differentiators, right? I think reviews can be really helpful in terms of understanding what resonates with runners. Like, what do they find important? What is it about your race that they loved? Is it the great communication? Is it the scenic course? Like, what are the themes that come out of that? And then using those testimonials to reinforce that can be very helpful and powerful as well.
Yeah, for us, beyond the traditional ways that people use reviews on their social media, etc., we have seen a number of organizers actually leverage reviews to reach out to local newspapers and get them to write about their event to their local community. So look at us, we got this award, or we got this rating. That means that we've been recognized as a quality operator. Why don't you talk about us and talk about how, what we did in order to earn this award and help us increase awareness. So we've definitely seen that, which is great. Yeah,
very important points both, actually. So Alex's point is use it for publicity. Yeah, really important. And I've seen events do that. And then Katie's point, also quite interesting and a little bit subtle, in that you're saying, let me see from reviews the kinds of things that people focus on, like the good things about my race. And maybe I can focus my marketing campaign around that, because I have a good chance that other people would care about the same kinds of things that these runners have reviewed my site, which is really interesting, because when it comes to, for instance, people advertising on Facebook, where it's generally advised that if you advertise your race, you try to focus on a point, right? You say, we have a fast race, or we have a, amazing experience, or a great, finish area, or whatever. Figuring out what areas of the race to focus on from actual kind of like data coming through reviews, it's also a really important tool, I think, right? It's really helpful. You mentioned earlier, both of you, a little bit how people should go about handling bad reviews. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Like, what are some examples of bad reviews you've seen, and some good responses to bad reviews from organizers?
I don't have any specific examples in front of me, but there's the usual, marshal supervision was poor, or potholes on the road. So there's constructive bad feedback, and there's just bashing type bad feedback. And I think participants are clever enough to make to distinguish between the two. The constructive bad feedback, you just want to see what the organizer is going to say about those and how they're looking to address that following year. And usually the organizers need to always accept that as valid feedback. I think being defensive is not a good strategy. They need to address the concern of the participant and just be very honest about what they're planning to do in order to address that the following year. Now, on the other end of the scale, there's reviews are coming in that are meant to hurt the credibility of the organizer. We've seen cases where competitor organizers are leaving fake reviews, which in my mind I think is hilarious, and that also leads to a different issue in how do you invalidate illegitimate reviews, and how do you flag them? I think as long as the negative feedback is constructive and the organizer accepts that and just very clearly explains what they're going to do about it, is enough.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that being open and accepting of that type of feedback. I mean, one thing we've seen is runners really appreciate when if something does go wrong at a race, when the race organizers own that mistake, right? And they own up to it, and they say, this happened and we're really sorry, and here's what we're going to do about it. A few years ago, there was an event where the lead pacer went the wrong way. And so a lot of runners ended up running longer than 13.1 miles, but the organizers knew it immediately. They sent texts and emails. They actually sent their finishers a 13.8 mile sticker. And the reviews that came across were fantastic. All the runners appreciated it. They ended up earning a 4.9 out of 5 that year and every year since, because the runners just felt like, they didn't accept the mistake, and they had they had higher expectations for themselves, and they were very upfront about it. And I think the worst thing that can happen is if you ignore, or even worse, try to suppress that feedback. We've certainly seen people who have come to our platform because they tried to leave feedback elsewhere, and those reviews were removed or hidden, and they were just looking for another way to vent. So we would not recommend that course of action.
Yeah. Feedback is a little bit like water. It finds its way through. It will surface. Yeah. I mean, this day and age, you can't really avoid it. The example you brought up there, Katie, I think is really interesting. I guess the one where you run a longer course. I've seen a couple of times, and I think there was one event that had mismeasured the course over consecutive years. Like, I don't really know how you come back from something like that. I mean, you can leave all the, you can go in and respond to every very, very angry review. Like, how do you come back from something like that?
That's tough when it's consecutive years. I mean, I think people are willing to give you a break if something happens in a particular year. And, again, mistakes are made. And if you own up to it, that's fine. When the same mistake happens over consecutive years, that becomes a problem. And many of those events either don't continue, or, it is, I'm not sure how to come back from that until the issue is addressed.
Right. So once I'm convinced of the case for reviews from the point of view of, like me knowing that there's a good case that reviews have some positive benefits for my event, what are some good tactics to try and solicit more reviews from my audience? Because I think that's also notoriously hard, I guess. People are hard to give, it's tough to get feedback out of people generally. It's a very valuable thing. That's why I think, platforms that have reviews are so important. But like from my point of view as a race director, how can I get more people doing my events to leave more reviews for my events?
I think that to a certain extent, the organizer has a responsibility and should cultivate and nurture a good relationship with their participants ahead of the race, throughout the race, and even after the race. As long as they've done that, asking for reviews shouldn't be that hard. For us, we've been doing this for a lot of years, so we've kind of made a science out of it. So I can't dwell too much into or dig too much into exactly what we do in order to solicit reviews. Actually, a competitor website pretended they were an organizer once just to try and understand how we get so many reviews, which is a different story. But I think the main thing here and the most successful organizers in that sense are organizers who have really invested the time to nurture a real relationship with the participants. And in that way, the participants then reciprocate with these reviews. So, at the end of the day, everyone's human. If you've created that sort of environment whereby you want to help the other person, or you want to help the other person by providing constructive feedback, not necessarily helping them artificially, that's really the best way and the cheapest way, for sure.
Yeah, we think it can be a very straightforward and turnkey part of any event's post-race communications. So timing-wise, we found that the best time to solicit reviews, not surprisingly, is in the few weeks after the event, right? Endorphins are high, people are excited. They're naturally sharing their experience anyways, potentially on social. But on social, it's so ephemeral. I mean, it's just hard to go back and, capture that and search for it again. And so if race organizers include, it can be a very simple mention or a call to action in their post-race email where they're talking about results and photos anyhow. And it's a call to action, again, help us spread the word. If you enjoyed the event, if you enjoyed your experience, please share it and let other runners know why they should run with us. And we've just found that to be a very effective message. It can be, again, just part of their post-race plans. We've also used an incentive, right? So if you throw in a free race entry or some merchandise, and we do try to make sure that, it's the prize is typically awarded based on a random selection. So it's not based on the content of the review. It's not, the best review will win. But it's just, right. It's a great way to create a sense of urgency and to collect those reviews in the weeks after the race. And so we've partnered with many race organizers to implement that type of program, and it's been very effective.
So you would send something at the end of the race and tell people, you leave a review and then one of you guys is going to get a prize. But again, incentives need to be, aligned to not bias people, basically, to leave a good review. And I guess it's, as you were saying about ephemeral posts on Facebook and stuff, you would encourage them actually to go on to RaceCheck or on RaceRaves so that these reviews end up living somewhere. So, it's almost like you get like a repository of all the reviews into one place. So it's a good thing for organizers to choose one platform or two platforms or whatever and keep sending people to the same place, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we're firm believers that reviews should live wherever runners are researching races, right? So sometimes people will encourage them for Facebook or for our site or other sites, and we think reviews are important enough. They should be on the platforms that runners are on, and we want to earn that place in as one of those platforms. But we're not trying to be exclusive about it.
Yeah. Although I do think that the most powerful place for reviews to be are where the organizers need them, and that's on their website. That's and we've taken that to the next level in that reviews need to be where organizers are trying to sell entries. At the end of the day, reviews are only useful at the point of sale. Let's put it that way. So the closer they are at the point of sale, the more useful for the organizers they are, and usually that's the website.
Yes, the website or the registration page.
Yeah.
And Alex, what's your thoughts on incentives? Do you guys do that? Do race directors you work with do that? Is there a good way to do it without, as Katie was saying, sort of like crossing that line where you're sort of, incentivizing people to leave a good review? Is there a way to incentivize people just to go and leave a review?
I think for sure, if a race organizer or anybody collecting reviews is incentivizing those reviews by providing a prize for each of those reviews, then for sure that's a gray area. If the organizer is just doing a draw, out of 1,000 reviews, somebody will benefit from that, then it doesn't really matter what the review is, as long as the review has been submitted, then somebody is in it. But there's no favoritism either. It's pure luck, right? If you benefit from that or not. So I think there's a huge distinction between somebody rewarding each review, whereas just doing some sort of lottery.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much everything I had in terms of the things that I had in mind asking you guys. I'm going to sort of like give you the floor for a couple of minutes, see if there's anything that you think we may have missed that really important to add to this discussion. Whichever one of you wants to go first.
Yeah, no. First of all, thank you very much for inviting us, and it's great to meet Katie as well. I think it's very important to raise awareness about reviews because we see race organizers all the time spend a lot of money on promotions and tools that do not necessarily have the same impact as true peer participant feedback. In this day and age, people tend to use the same sort of channels for promotion and advertising, and that with time just tends to just raise the prices for those, where you reach to a point where there's a thin line between actually gaining something back and return on investment. Feedback and participant feedback, and this is why the review industry is so massive, is one of the most powerful ways and cheapest ways to increase sales. So thank you very much for inviting us and allowing us to kind of share our insights and ways that organizers can use those reviews and maybe alleviate some of those concerns about negative reviews, etc. Because it's important. Very, very passionate about this field and really, really a massive believer in the impact that it can have, especially at this time where organizers need all the help they can in order to get back on their feet. So thank you.
I would agree with much of that. I mean, I think word of mouth is so powerful in so many different venues, and reviews are a really, great way to capture that. So we feel very strongly that this is a powerful tool and a often very inexpensive and affordable tool for race directors. So hopefully this conversation helped educate and was a helpful resource. So thank you for having us on, Alex. It was great to meet you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Well, before we go, because I see you guys are both eager to jump off the call, one more thing and one more opportunity for you guys to help race directors out. I know RaceCheck, you have the badges that you guys share and people can put on your website. RaceRaves, I guess, although I'm not 100% sure that you have something similar. So each of you just tell race directors where they can go on your sites to find more information about using reviews and the kinds of things that you do, like the badges and other stuff. So Katie, you go first now.
Sure. So we have a partner page on our site that you can go to, and it links to resources about how to capture and leverage and showcase reviews. So we have different types of badges in terms of there's the general just showcasing your reviews on our site. We also use reviews as a way to uncover what I'll call hidden gems. So there are big races out there that many people know about and will come naturally find, but there are also a lot of smaller events that get very high ratings that people don't know about. And so we write a lot of editorial around that. Mm-hmm. And we also have badges for best marathons, best half marathons in the US by state. So there are a lot of different ways in which race directors can leverage either those badges or the reviews in general. So I would suggest go to raceraves.com/partner, and there's information there. My contact information is there as well. It's a great way to learn about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for RaceCheck, basically, if anybody goes to organizers.racecheck.com, they can find all the information they want about how to get involved. With RaceCheck, we basically collect reviews on organizers we have, and then we present those reviews through an interactive widget, which basically sits on the organizer's website, so that people can navigate the reviews as if they were on the RaceCheck page, reading their reviews. themselves. We've got a free tier as well for organizers with smaller budgets, and they both lead to a dashboard and a backend where organizers can actually get analysis over their reviews, get common themes, patterns, ways to, resources about how to use those reviews, analysis, a ton of really, really useful tools. So organizers.racecheck.com to find out more.
And is that organizers with an S or with a Z?
Good question. Yeah, that's with an S.
Okay, there you go. I knew that. Yeah. And we have plenty of people coming in from the US. Okay, guys,
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for your time today. I think we touched on a topic that is really quite unique and is just one more channel for people to help improve their events. So thank you very much for coming on and helping us on that. And thank you very much also to everyone listening in. And I hope I'll see everyone on the next episode.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode on Race Reviews with RaceCheck's Alex Tanti and Race Raves' Katie Ho. You can find more resources on anything and everything related to race directing on our website, racedirectorshq.com. You can also share your questions about race reviews in our Facebook group, Race Directors Hub. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe or leave a review on your favorite player. And also check out the podcast back catalog for more great content like this. Until our next episode, take care and keep putting on amazing races.